So, Shalawanka, today I want to talk about something that recently occurred on June 14th pertaining to the death of 1-year-old Kohen Wiley, right? And all this information I'm going to put out, I have it compiled from ABC News, NBC News, Newsweek, WMC, Action News 5, and WREG. So, based on the things that they reported. Now, Kohen Wiley, age 1, was shot in the ribcage by Senatobia police officer in the parking lot of Walmart on US 51 Senatobia, Mississippi on June 14th, 2026. He was rushed to a hospital in Senatobia where he was pronounced dead. His mother was told that she could not see him until his body was returned from Jackson. Kohen was a passenger in the vehicle. He was not the subject of any accusation. He committed no acts. He had no agency in any event that preceded his death. He was innocent to the fullest sense of the word innocent. Now, a lot of y'all have a lot to say concerning this. And some of it is, you have people saying that, oh, the officer was justified. You have other people saying, no, the officer wasn't justified and it's a racial issue. They're saying it's a black and white thing. What I'm going to say is, according to biblical law, that officer is 100% guilty of murder. If nobody else is going to say it, that officer is 100% guilty of murder. And it is sad because no matter what y'all do, no matter how much y'all protest, no matter how much y'all damage property, no matter how much y'all complain, as long as you continue to believe that the laws are done away with, and this goes for all you so-called Christians, so-called pastors, so-called bishops, so-called apostles out there teaching that the law is done away with. Don't you know each time you regurgitate BS pertaining to the law being done away with, that you pervert the justice that this book, the law that is in this book, is supposed to do? Every single one of you are guilty of perversion. Deuteronomy 27 and 25 says, "Cursed is the one who sheds innocent blood." Kohen, that 1-year-old child, was completely innocent. There's no reason for that officer who knew that that child was in that vehicle, there was no reason for him to fire at that car 3 to 4 shots. Not a single shot that was fired was justified. His death was uncalled for. Numbers 35 and 33 says, "Do not pollute the land where you are. Bloodshed pollutes the land. An atonement cannot be made for the land on which blood has been shed, except by the blood of the one who shed it." That officer, he has blood on his hands. Now, they reported 3 to 4 shots, right, into an occupied vehicle. One shot struck Kohen, killing him. The other shot struck the driver in the arm and in the thigh, right? Cohen's mother raised the baby before the shots were fired, visibly alerting the officers that there was a child in the vehicle, a child's presence in the vehicle. The officers fired anyways. The family's attorney states the body cam footage would show that the vehicle was not a threat and was driving away, not towards the officers. And that same officer was placed on administrative leave. I know y'all are sick and tired, because I'm sick and tired of every time when an officer, or it doesn't even have to be an officer, but in this situation, when an officer does something, they get put on immediate administrative leave pending an investigation. I'm sorry. Scripture calls for, when someone commits a sin, Justice and judgment is supposed to be served immediately, especially if there are witnesses present. There was a parking lot full of witnesses, a parking lot full. But anyways, let's talk about these charges. The first one, murder in the first degree, right? If a man schemes and kills another man deliberately, take him away from my altar and put him to death. This is in Exodus 21:14. Genesis 9:6. Whosoever sheds human blood, by human shall their blood be shed. For in the image of God has God made mankind. Not only was it murder in the first degree, it was attempted murder because the driver was also shot in the arm and in the thigh. Those multiple shots, they hit multiple people. Exodus 20:13, you shall not murder. It doesn't matter if you have a badge. Nothing justified that shooting. I don't care if the car was coming towards him. There is no justified reason to shoot in an occupied vehicle that has a child. So there was reckless disregard for not only two adults, but a child. And each time something like this happens, what do? They cover it up, pending an investigation. They're just trying to buy time for themselves to see how they can cover this up, to see how they can quell all the rioting. That's all. Proverbs 19:9. A false witness will not go unpunished, and he who breathes out lies will perish. Now, the family's attorney states that the body cam footage will directly contradict that the driver drove towards the officers. The body cam footage will prove this. Without the body cam footage, and even if the car did drive towards the officers, again, there was no reason to shoot into an occupied vehicle where there was a child. I'm going to say this time and time again. There's no reason for it. That is unjustifiable killing. Jeremiah 7:6. Do not shed innocent blood in this place. A property crime, an alleged property crime, an unconfirmed theft is not worth lethal force. It's not. Scripture permits no ransom substitute for this offense. It doesn't. You shall not accept a ransom for the life of a murderer who is guilty of death, but he shall surely be put to death. That's Numbers 35:31. Abuse of authority. This is Isaiah 10:1. Woe to those who decree iniquitous decrees and the writers who keep writing oppression to turn aside the needy from justice. This is abuse of authority. The use of power to pursue, endanger, and ultimately kill people in connection with an accusation that the self-checkout video will prove never happened is an abuse of authority. It's an abuse of authority. That was just for the shooter. But the non-shooting officer was also in the wrong because he was supposed to prevent that shooting. Whether he pulled the trigger or not, he was supposed to prevent that shooting. He was complicit in the murder. Why? Because he was present, he was armed, he was aware of the child's presence in the vehicle, and he failed to prevent the shooting. Proverbs 24:11. It says, rescue those being led away to death. Hold back those stumbling towards slaughter. If you say we knew nothing about this, Does not he who weighs the heart perceive it? And if this officer cooperates with the shooting officer in any manner, he is a false witness. He is a co-conspirator. If corroborating the officer's account that the vehicle drove towards them, and if the body cam footage contradicts this, they are both false witnesses. And he also participated in the abuse of authority. He participated in the wrongful armed pursuit of individuals who were alleged to be in the act of shoplifting. Now, the friend that was the driver, right? She was the one that was accused of shoplifting, right? Apparently, the self-checkout footage is going to reportedly show that the diapers were paid for. But again, even if the diapers were not paid for, again, even if they got into that vehicle and with the police pursuing them and the police knowing that there was a child in the vehicle, no justifiable reason to fire 3 to 4 shots in that car. Cohen's mother stated that the friend was driving towards the other side of the parking lot, away from the officers, not towards them. And I don't know if she's been charged, but we're going to see about that as well. Now, apparently the video evidence of payment at the self-checkout will eliminate the crime entirely, right? Meaning that there was no theft. And that also means that the accusation was false. So the so-called shoplifting is dismissed. The fleeing from officers is substantially mitigated, right? So for those officers to draw weapons against them, against innocent people, flight becomes a rational response. It's not considered criminal evasion. And also, scripture does not hold someone accountable for evading in such a situation. It doesn't. But Proverbs 25 and 26 says, a righteous man who gives way before the wicked is like a polluted thing. In this situation, the wicked were in pursuit of the innocent. The driver, which was the friend who was shot, she is a victim of false accusation, wrongful armed pursuit, and excessive force because she was shot twice. We also got the mother. The mother, she wasn't charged with anything. And I want to say here on camera that my condolences go out to you and your family, because that situation should have never happened. So, I mean, honestly, words cannot express the type of sorrow or what you're going through to lose your child to gun violence by an officer of the law that was supposed to be there to serve and protect. But we know the system is crooked, the system is unjust, and we don't mean anything to them. Because if we did, if that child did, those shots wouldn't have been fired. I'm sorry, there's nothing, if I was a police officer, there's nothing that would make me fire shots into an occupied vehicle knowing that there's a child. I don't care how much target practice, I don't care how great I think my aim is. You raised your baby up, you showed them that that child was in their car, and they still shot. And now, All of this stemmed from a false accusation. If indeed that the Walmart cameras, self-checkout cameras prove that those diapers were were paid for. And even if they weren't, again, nothing justified what happened. But if the Walmart self-checkout cameras prove that those diapers were paid for, you both were victims of false witness, false accusation. Because the friend was accused of shoplifting diapers, right? Walmart stated that the safety of associates and customers is a top priority and that they are cooperating with law enforcement. No. Because of that false accusation, the chain of events unfolded the way that they did. Right? The entire chain of events. The officers being called, the guns being drawn, the vehicle being pursued, and your child being killed was all because of that false accusation, that false witness. And again, even if there was shoplifting going on, that officer should have had restraint. There's no way to justify shooting into, and I'm going to say it until I'm blue in it. There's no reason for 3 to 4 shots to have been fired into that vehicle. Right? Let me prove something to you. Let's go to Exodus 22. Exodus 22:2 says, if a thief is caught breaking in and is beaten to death, no one shall be guilty of bloodshed. But if it happens after sunrise, there is guilt for his bloodshed. A thief must make full restitution. If he has nothing, he himself shall be sold for his theft. If what was stolen is actually found alive in his possession, whether an ox or a donkey or sheep, he must repay back double. So, even in the event of her stealing diapers, her punishment would be to pay back what she stole. And in some instances, times 7. Correct me if I'm wrong. Did not the alleged theft happen after sunrise? Like, it was broad day, right? Okay. Exodus 20:16 says, you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. Any foreseeable harm that creates liability, regardless of who physically acts, should not have been committed. This is Deuteronomy 19:18-19. If the witness is false and has accused his brother falsely, do to him as he intended to do to his brother. So, while all the attention was put on the mother and her friend because of this false accusation, the cops need to be held accountable. The police department needs to be held accountable. Walmart needs to be held accountable. The associate that called in the false accusation needs to be held accountable. All of these things need to be checked. Why? Because it's institutional complicity. Walmart's public response cooperates with law enforcement without calling for transparency on the false accusation that started this. Institutional silence in the face of a child's death caused by one's own false report is not neutrality. It is being complicit. It's being complicit. Exodus 23:2. Do not follow a crowd to do evil. If the person who called in that claim realized that it was indeed false, they need to speak up. They need to speak up. So I would guess by now, the officer who fired the shots probably has not been publicly identified by the police department. But I'm sure that, some people who have done their individual research have probably found the officer. But the sad thing is, this officer has been placed on administrative leave, right? Which is a standard practice, and it shouldn't be. And the other thing is, the Senatobia police previously released video quickly from a separate incident at the same Walmart in May 2025, apparently demonstrating the ability to expedite release when chosen. So anytime the police say they're going to release footage, or they take their sweet time releasing footage that would either prove or disprove, it's by choice. They are the ones obstructing justice. The ones who are supposed to be upholding it are the ones obstructing justice. Withholding identity, right? Being selective in their transparency, right? Protecting the guilty. There's no, again, shooting into an occupied vehicle where there's a child. There's no justifiable reason to shoot into an occupied vehicle where there's a child. Women and children. We're supposed to protect women and children, right? It's administrative leave with no pay while a baby is dead and a mother grieves is the institutional equivalent of ransom, precisely what numbers 35 and 31 forbids. The law makes no provision for professional exemption from accountability for innocent blood. You shall not accept a ransom for the life of a murderer who is guilty of death. And I've seen the videos of the protesting and them using tear gas, and I'm standing out there with helmets and riot gear. To now turn around and use abusive force against a grieving community of which the child was a part of is beyond me. I'm not saying that they have the right to go and now damage property and tear up the city. What you should have done was held that police officer should have been arrested on site. Proverbs 22 and 22. Do not oppress the affiliated at the gate. Isaiah 10 and 1. Woe to those who make unjust laws, to those who issue oppressive decrees. Administrative leave, not identifying the officer when he should have been immediately identified. He should have been immediately arrested. But again, those people who currently sit in a position to lord over us, they should not be there. They don't represent proper judgment and justice. They don't. They do not. The MBI issued a statement that the driver drove in the direction of the officers before the shot was fired, before the investigation concluded. Commissioner Sean Tyndall promised transparency but declined to discuss case details. Body cam footage could take months to be released pending investigation. The MBI had 5 agents gathering evidence and witness statements. No charges have been filed against any officer as of the date of this report. This is Ecclesiastes 8 and 11. When the sentence for a crime is not quickly carried out, people's hearts are filled with schemes to do wrong. Again, as I stated a few seconds ago, them now taking up arms and protesting and possibly destroying property, there's no call for that. But when you pervert judgment, when you don't carry out sentencing and judgment quickly, it has an adverse reaction. Proverbs 18 and 17 says, do not give a verdict before hearing both sides, right? The MBI released a statement describing the driver as having driven towards officers before the investigation was complete and before the family's account was incorporated into public record. This prejudiced the public's narrative in favor of the officer. In my opinion, that's a textbook tactic. They always want to sway public's opinion towards an officer, even if that officer is completely wrong. And if the state investigates and clears the officer and chooses to close the case, how do you think that's going to fare? We'll go back to Numbers 35 and 33. Do not pollute the land where you are. Bloodshed pollutes the land, and atonement cannot be made for it except by the blood of the one who shed it. Again, that's Numbers 35 and 33. So as long as they continue to cover for the officer, as long as they continue to have him on administrative leave, as long as they continue to so-called do their investigation, they will be lucky if that city does not burn. So, from the false accusation to the two officers, the one who fired the shot and the one who didn't, to both the passengers and the child, all of this was started because of a false accusation. This is the reason why Scripture says, thou shalt not bear false witness. This is the reason why we should be keeping the commands, because the commands hold people accountable. And yet, I still want to say that the law was done away with. And Christ himself said, think not that I've come to destroy the law or the prophets. I did not come to destroy, but to fulfill. Fulfill meant that he came to do everything that the law and the prophets said that he would, and to also walk in the very law that he himself gave. He was the example of how we were supposed to walk, and we are supposed to follow his lead. Judgment, the laws are for judgment and justice. And as long as the wicked, as long as you choose to look towards the wicked and think the wicked have your best interest in mind, true judgment and true justice will not be had. You won't get it. There will continue to be shootings, unjustified shootings and killings. Until you decide to turn back to the Most High. Again, my condolences go out to the, especially to the mother and the family of Kohen. But we got to get back. We have to get back to walking in the ways of the Most High. Keeping the laws and keeping the commandments. Because no system that is currently set up on this earth is going to enact the justice and the judgment perfectly as prescribed in these scriptures. With that, I want to say, take this time to reflect. And enjoy this Holy Sabbath day. Shalom.